trying to figure out how to mount these doors on the baggage compartments, and there's different options a person could use. I've pretty much figured I'm going to hinge this on the front side of the baggage compartment frame so that the door opens to the front of the airplane, and that way if for some reason it doesn't get latched after it's been opened, the slipstream will just push it closed. I thought about mounting it on the top and folding it over on top of the airplane, and that would work out just fine, but I didn't really like that. They could mount it on the bottom and fold it down. That would work out fine too. If you did that, then you got the latches up here on the top and a seam up here with possibility of water running down in there. But that's the same thing as what you have if you mount it to the side like this. Just about any other way you mount it, you still have a chance of rain getting down and water running down in there. Now, you can't mount it to the back and have it fold back. There's a couple reasons for that. One is we've got this handle put on here. We had put on for a grab handle for getting on and off the airplane on the floats when we're coming off of a beach. The other thing is, if it was hinged back here and opened backwards, if for some reason it came unlatched or didn't get latched, the slipstream would open that up and the whole thing would act just like a drogue chute and be a lot of drag on there. So then the question becomes how to put the hinges on there. This is the baggage compartment door that came from Cub Crafters on the airframe. It's a different shape, of course, than this baggage compartment that we got from Alaska Airframes. It's not quite as big, as tall, but it was a pretty good sized baggage compartment door. And they had it mounted up with the hinge riveted on to the lower section of the door, and it hinged down, and then the hinge stayed flat and was riveted or screwed into the frame of the baggage compartment door at the bottom, so the hinge was exposed on the bottom and then hidden behind the door there. I've tried different mock-ups on this one as to how to mount the hinges. This is one option here, and with this one I've got the hinge set up here, and I've got it just taped on to the outside flange on the frame here of the baggage compartment door. It's just hinged right there, and then I've taken the door panel and I've got it taped up to the inside of the hinge. Okay, at one time I had it taped up to the outside of the hinge and tried it there, but the door sticks out proud of the hinge a little bit, and when you open and close it, it would rub on the fabric right here. So that's why I moved it on the inside. The other thing that happens with that is the thickness of the hinge when it's closed then creates a gap back here. Now this is similar to what most of the pictures and most of the installations I've seen done on these have. The hinge is mounted here on the inside face of this frame. So I put a piece of metal on there, door skin on there for that door, and put it onto that hinge plate. Now that closes up pretty nice. It stands a little bit proud back here, but there are big gaps, big openings on the top and bottom of this hinge. There's a big gap there, a big gap there, and then there's gaps in each one of these hinge points. If I take a piece and just make an inset here, relieve this section here, and leave little tabs sticking out in the top and the bottom to go by that hinge point, then that closes these gaps at the top and the bottom up, but it still leaves these gaps in the hinge itself exposed. You have to be careful not to leave too much on the tabs on the ends of it, or the door was going to scrape on the metal on the frame of the door here. Having the hinge mounted like this would probably work out okay in a country that's dry, but in a country where you get almost 200 inches of rain a year and they're flying with spray coming off of there, that water is just gonna hit this, gonna run down the side of the fuselage and just hit this, and just some of it of course is going to go around it, but it's going to have a tendency to force it right down in behind that hinge. The advantage that this does have is that it keeps the metal, the door itself, away from the fabric more, and when it does come back and contact it, it contacts on a solid surface right here on this door frame instead of the unsupported edge of this door frame where the fabric is. We got the hinge screwed on there. I made a couple missteps with drilling. I laid out the pattern on here and got them pretty much even, but then I got down here, this one hole went into this longeron that started going into it, so I moved it up far enough to get clearance for the hole and the rivets to hold the rivet nuts on. Well, they're not rivet nuts, they're nut plates. So I put number 4 nut plates in there. This flange on here would have been wide enough to get in behind it to set rivets, but of course with a panel on here for the baggage compartment, I couldn't get the squeezers in there. But then this former goes in there and blocks about half of that. That former, this frame goes right around there. The former is pretty tight against there. It's not perfectly tight against it, but it's close enough that you can't really get rivets in there, regular rivets in there and set them. Especially down below, the holes actually almost went right into that. So I used cherry rivets for that, 3/32, and they went right in there. Everything is nice, got them all flush, and then I put flathead number 4 screws in there. These are all countersunk and they're down nice and flat. Now that won't extend that hinge out at all. Instead of setting this hinge flush with the frame here, I offset it by 1/10 of an inch, so the hinge itself kind of hangs out over this this lip. So this frame around here has got a little flange on, a little bend on it that bends in. So this hinge point hangs out over that, so when it opens and stuff, it won't be going right against that fabric right there. It'll have a little bit of cushion, or a little bit of cushion behind the fabric, so it can move instead of being right tight against it. I got the door pretty well figured out now. I went ahead and drilled the holes in the skin for the door and the hinge where the skin is going to attach. And I was kind of originally thinking about putting that door skin underneath the hinge, but I think I'm going to go ahead and put it on the outside of the hinge like this. And we'll put flathead rivets on there, and they'll come from the inside out. That way the hinge can close up tight. So I'm going to use number 3 rivets, and when I set them, I'm going to use the brazier head die on the bucktails of them. It rounds them off and makes them look a little nicer than the regular shop head. I've got this all laid out and it's cut pretty much to shape, but I'm going to take, I think about 4/10 of an inch off of each side of this, the top, the bottom, and I don't know whether this is the back side or the front side, depending on what way you're looking at it, but it's the back of the airplane. This door frame has a flange bent over on it, and this door overlaps that flange. But if I put a flange on this door frame on around here now to stiffen it and to help seal it up, then that's going to overlap that frame and push in on the fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this door down so that when I bend that flange in it on the sides, it cups against the door frame. And the door's set up there again. I've got the holes lined up here. I've got it trimmed down. I took 3/8 of an inch off of each of the 3 sides, and that brings these edges up to where this bend is, the fold is on this frame around here, pretty much around it. So that'll give better support for that door when it closes. Well, the next thing I'll do, I'm going to go ahead and take this now and mark it. I think it's 4/10 of an inch that I put this in the bead roller with my homemade beads on there, and to roll a flange around this edge. So that's what I'm going to do next, is put a flange similar to what's on here around the edge, the perimeter of this door on the 3 floating sides of it. That'll put it in tighter to this frame around here when it's closed, and it'll stiffen it up a little bit. Not that it's not stiff enough as it is, it's pretty stiff, but